Marjory Stoneman Douglas's, one of her famous lines was that we are never, ever finished with learning.
4 out of 5 musicians who play an instrument will get injured during their career at least once.
These are the tomatoes that we're growing. We have the same experiment running with tomatoes as we do with strawberries, so we're doing variety trials and we're trying just to see which variety grows the best in a green roof setting.
This place where Alyssa rests.
The problem at MSD is that we're here to talk about gun violence, right?
This is more activism than art. I am demanding change.
It's possible if you have the conversation to find the common ground.
That's actually the quote that's on the fence that covers the building that the shooting occurred. We went through such a trauma, and sometimes we are very low. And seeing those quotes around our school, and especially from Marjory Stoneman Douglas, who our school was named after, reminds us to never give up.
Marjory Stoneman Douglas is a great example of the change that one person can have. She was instrumental in making sure that the Everglades was a protected area to become a national park and to stop the encroachment of development. She almost single-handedly saved the Everglades.
When I came down in 1915, nobody had ever written about the Everglades, except there was very few pamphlets that I found. Nobody knew anything about it.
Marjory Stoneman Douglas was a little 4'8" Spitfire. She was basically a writer. Her father owned the Miami Herald. She called her dad, and her dad said, get on the train and come to Florida. And that sparked her big interest in the Everglades.
I loved the whole Florida thing, the South Florida thing. I loved the tropics and the light and the sun and the openness of the landscape and being near the sea and so on.
Well, she gets her start out of nepotism. You know, her father hired her for the Miami Herald, and she starts to take over a society page, talking about the little intricacies of everything from the women's clubs to if there's a new bridge being opened, etc. Later on, she actually goes to Europe. She signs up with the American Red Cross, and it's in Paris where she really struggles with what she really wants to do in life, and writing becomes the key thing. Above anything, she wants to be a writer.
Marjory was well known for trying to save the Everglades, but earlier in her life with women's suffrage, she would take the train to Tallahassee time and time again, and it was about getting the right for women to vote. And she didn't give up until they did get the right to vote.
I think the extraordinary thing about Florida...
She didn't have an environmental background. She was retired, so she was free to go sit at a commission meeting or a group gathering to convince politicians to change the rules and regulations.
Marjory Stoneman Douglas writes about the light in the Everglades and the light in Florida, and she was very moved by it. She came from a very tough early beginning, and the light was very key in her life. And she also talks very poetically in how it hit everything from the sawgrass to the flaps of the birds. So light was very key in her prose. When I take groups out in the Everglades, I actually remember Marjory Stoneman Douglas's, one of her famous lines was that we are never, ever finished with learning. Marjorie was so good at the science that she actually sometimes knew more than some of the politicians and had to actually school them. That was actually her gift. She used to her advantage this kind of older, grandmotherly figure that a lot of politicians like to placate. She would snap them right out and say, I'm not here to play games. I don't care what you think about me. Let's get to what we're here to really, really talk about.
I don't believe in compromise. You only compromise from weakness. If you're winning, you don't have to compromise. The people who are losing are the ones who compromise.
It's really interesting when Harry Truman came down to inaugurate the park. I'm sure Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was smiling. There were lots of people that came together that really struggled to create this park. It took 20 years to protect the park, and Marjorie was there from the very beginning. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was bestowed with the highest honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Marjorie certainly deserved receiving that award. To receive the Medal of Freedom Award at 103 years old, and President Clinton called Marjorie the grandmother of the Everglades.
But I think that she passed it on to the next generation, that we still had a lot of work to be done.
Fight for your lives before it's someone else's job.
It was really touching to watch these children on television when that Parkland incident happened.
Since this movement began, people have asked me, do you think any change is going to come from this? Look around. We are the change.
And it was just very ironic that they had her spirit.
Has learned that our voices are powerful and our votes matter.
All of us who knew her, we all called each other and said, can you believe these students and, you know, what a job they're doing? And they're doing it just like Marjorie would have done it.
Just like Marjorie Stoneman Douglas paved the way for us as a woman, as an activist, as a compassionate human being who led from her heart and who wasn't motivated by ego or power or money. She was motivated by doing what's right. And I see the same thing in these students. They're taking a stand and they're saying that we care about the world and we care about humanity.
She went on to live to be 108, and up until, I want to say, the day she died, she was still talking about saving the Everglades.
You got to stick with it. You got to see it through. You got to be tough.
Certain rules to this. So, for example, you can't just suddenly bend over in front of someone else. It'd become like a Three Stooges event, and everyone would fall over.
In much of Iraq, the wives and children of defeated Islamic State militants are rejected by their communities. But this town was once home to some of IS's most notorious leaders, now all in hiding, in jail, or dead. If all of the families of all of the fighters stayed away, this town would be half empty.
هاي فلوس مال دواعش. يعني هاي سرقنا اشفى الحرق. هاي كلها العالم هي وقعت. لين ما كنا نريدهم يرجعون. عشان شفناه منهم. يا ابو ليش؟ سمو مسلم وتلقانا احنا اكثر منهم. تسمين بدين وهاي بس شنو عبنهم؟
The desert town was long a hotbed of radical Islamist thought. When Islamic State took over in 2014, its numbers exploded as men here joined the cause. Their will was imposed on all. Now once again ruled by tribal leaders, IS victims live side by side with the militants' families. Sheikhs are working to reconcile the two sides, but hatreds here run deep. This town may never escape its extremist past, but it may one day reconcile and become a rare example of how a country enveloped by a cycle of violence can move beyond vengeance.
This roof has a greenhouse. It has stairs and elevators to access the roof. We put in a weather station. We put in cisterns to irrigate. So all of those things are critical components to success.
This is the future for food. What we have established here at this college is the food hub concept of you grow it here, you prepare it in a commercial kitchen, you distribute it through farmers markets, food trucks, and then you recycle.
We were really excited about this project because it started to do something more than just dealing with stormwater management. It took advantage of a resource above the city that you see all over.
In an urban environment, you don't have maybe all that many spaces to choose from, and so rooftops are just unutilized space. So it's a really good way to not have to restructure your city necessarily and be able to incorporate green roofs. So bringing fresh food into cities where you wouldn't necessarily have that access. These are the tomatoes that we're growing. We have the same experiment running with tomatoes as we do with strawberries. So we're doing variety trials and we're trying just to see which variety grows the best in a green roof setting. In the US, it may not seem very common to use hibiscus leaves and sweet potato leaves as food, but in many places around the world it is.
My biggest surprise was that we produced 4,250 pounds of produce the first year and was able to disseminate that to people in need.
I'd like to see this as becoming more a part of the standard, where people design and build buildings with farming on the roof, with the ability to actually go up there and enjoy it and have a better connection to nature, but also to provide better, fresh food to people.
You're around for like decades.
This is just my personal ethic, where I would go for a run, and if I happened to see a piece of garbage laying around and it was within reach, it was kind of a little test of mine to see if I can grab it and throw it in the nearby trash can without stopping. And then I come to find out this has actually become an international movement, that there's people all around the world now doing this. As I understand, the name plogging originated in Sweden, using their language to combine picking up with jogging, and you get plogging, I guess. And it's picked up now throughout the country and again around the world. Less of a sport than really just an approach to socializing with other people in a very positive, healthy way.
I wouldn't say I do it all the time. Sometimes we get groups together on a Saturday or Sunday. We go for a run, we'll pick up some garbage, then we'll actually go for brunch after, and we'll kind of make a little bit of an event of it.
You can't just suddenly bend over in front of someone else. It'd become like a Three Stooges event and everyone would fall over. You want to make sure that you kind of cover a little bit of different territory. People kind of naturally fall into that role. So if I'm a little bit more to the curbside, I'll look towards the gutter. And someone else a little bit close to the hedges, they fall into picking up there. So you get a rhythm going between people.
For a moment, we'll do 10 of those. Try to loosen.
We usually start with doing some body weight squats, some calisthenics, some balance work. Gloves are important. You want to make sure that this is going to be healthy for you, even you have good intentions. You never know what you'll find. There might be broken glass, some medical waste.
Big piece, big piece. I feel much better. I'm rewarded myself. And then I'm looking out for everybody else that's going to be running in these streets as long as I will.
I would just hope people would think twice before dropping their garbage on the ground. We have receptacles, seems like every block, so it's easy to put your garbage in the trash cans. I just think people should think about it a little bit more and be cognizant of, keeping the city as beautiful as possible.
We didn't change the world, but we made it just a little bit better than it was. Go ahead.
Sweet.
All right, high five.
Okay, well done.
That's what they find here. They start to get that self-confidence. And it's amazing. There's something tactile about working with wood.
Ann Sestern, and I want you to meet one of my colleagues here at Voice America, Hazel Tobias. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
And Hazel, you work in the Spanish services?
Yes, I do.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from El Salvador.
What brought you to the United States?
To be honest, love.
Love. Well, that's a good reason. That's a good reason. And did the love work out all right?
Not really.
Not really. Okay, well, we'll move off that. Just a couple years, that's good enough, though. But love brought you here, and you decided to stay?
I actually found the opportunity to work in what I love to do, which is being a journalist. I was a journalist back in my country. And when I came here, I couldn't find easily any Hispanic media. But then a friend told me about VOA. And then when I came and I saw how they do their job and I start working for VOA, I was very impressed, and I decided definitely that this is the team I want to be part of.
Did you always want to be a journalist?
I always wanted to be a journalist. I've been working for the media since I was 12 years old.
Who did you interview as a 12-year-old?
Well, little kids my age.
What even wanted you to do that at age 12? Why, at age 12, I don't know, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
Even though it was something for entertainment, I needed to go to the channel every day after school. When I saw my kids, my friends playing around soccer and, just being normal, just being kids, I was working and memorizing scripts and, being in a makeup room and all that. So, yeah, I missed part of that, but at the same time, it opened my future. It opened my way. So I had always been clear of what I wanted to be. I had the opportunity to impact other people's life, and that's exactly what brought me to VOA, and that's what I'm here, because I feel like we can really make an impact in other people's life.
It's been fun to learn how to use these tools, and not only have I learned how to use a lot of tools that I never would have even known. Like even sawing, you never really think about it, but to saw a straight line is a lot harder than like a lot of people make it look. Learned definitely measure twice and cut once.
Many of the apprentices in our program have faced many challenges in their life, such as lack of family support, dropping out of school, having run-ins with the law, and they're looking for a way to gain back the confidence they need to go back out into the workforce.
And one reason that I came to the program was because they want to help you. And I guess what is hard for me is because I'm not used to someone wanting to help me or enthusiastic about it, or if anything, would believe in me, because I've always had to prove that I'm worth of value versus having someone already know I'm worth value.
You can translate this information to this information. That's what they find here. They start to get that self-confidence slowly, and it's amazing. There's something tactile about working with wood. When you work with wood, you feel it, it becomes part of you. And as their self-confidence gets better, then you can start to address some other things in their lives, like what's your driver's license like? Do you have any fines against you? Are you paying your bills? Where are you living? Have you seen a doctor lately? All these kinds of things.
Meets this. I believe there's no such thing as failure than failure without gained knowledge.
Be a few lower.
Yeah. So this is eventually it goes in like this. As it turns into the stem, you're fitting the end of the plank into it. So it would look like that.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I was gonna.
Did they leave a checklist for you to do? Mm-mm. They said they were gonna wait because they're still deciding on a few things with it. It's turning out definitely to be more than I thought it would be. They've helped me with some commission work, so I have even extra money in my pocket. I've learned calculus since I've been here, how to do logic.
Yeah. Go ahead, set the other one. Okay.
How to build a boat and how to do furniture.
That's the nose of the stem, and 2 inches, another 4 inches, and that's where I'm going to drill down.
Some things that even people that go to carpentry school don't know, because I've been able to have the opportunity to work with such great shipwrights that know so much more than what a normal carpenter would know.
I think Chris is getting a place that's teaching him something, but that also has his back. That's something that he didn't have before. This is a kid who came to us, who off the bat was at the ready for any project, ready to learn whatever he could.
Yeah, I think we just leave a little more. Through the whole process, it made me realize is like, if you can build a boat, you can basically do anything, because you start with nothing and it becomes a work of art.
Four out of 5 musicians who play an instrument will get injured during their career at least once.
I've had pain in my arm before here, but it's never been in my wrist area before. And I've gotten bruising quite a few times now in the same place in my hand.
One will recover and get back merely to playing their instrument. Out of the remaining 3, 2 will continue playing but will have chronic problems with acute episodes along the way. And unfortunately, 1 will discontinue their art because of injury.
Musicians suffer injury and pain at very high rates, and that this is really, really a form of suffering.
Coming here and, telling my teacher, like, okay, I'm getting pain in my wrist, like, I can't play, like, this is starting to hurt a lot, and him being, like, so concerned, I've never was like that before. Like, I was always just kind of, like, brushed it off, like, oh, it's probably nothing. But so he was like, okay, well, you need to go and get this checked out, because it was a different kind of pain, which I've never experienced before.
You really want to avoid any pressure on your elbow.
We need to have better tools to address, better strategies for helping to educate musicians in ways that they can avoid injuries, and how we can respond to injuries when they do occur.
That nerve in this position is bent right here, so it's under pressure. So if you're spending 8 hours like this, before you know, you'll have issues. I came up with this idea of Smart Guitar and a Peabody Smart Instrument series, which will be able to measure the forces, finger forces on the entire fretboard, so that we can get better data. I think it would be valuable in training musicians with evidence-based pedagogy, so that they can develop certain motor skills more quickly without a lot of repetition, which repetition is also one of the occupational hazards.
I think one of just my biggest mistakes is playing through pain, but 2, I think we didn't realize that I had like some, health issues with, thinking that there might be blood clotting in my hand, so I think that really helped to, bring awareness just to like bigger overarching problems to be aware of, and if something happens then, or if like those symptoms re-show up, we at least kind of know what it is and how to deal with it.
So we sprinkle the salt, so every single one gets a little bit of a different amount.
After 15 minutes, a militant came and told us that someone in the bathroom has killed herself. I immediately knew it was Jalan. She slit her wrist.
They taught me how to pull the handle of the rifle and put the magazine in it.
से जारा बांधकर गो अल्लाहु अकबर.
One of them shouted Allah Akbar 3 times and then ordered to shoot. He turned and shot me.
At 10 o'clock, a man came. He was the American Daesh. I asked him, "What are you doing to us?" He said, "I am going to sell you."
They shot gun over our heads, but we did not stop until we reached a bridge and jumped.
We ran away from Hawija to Kirkuk. One of my friends stepped on a landmine. After the explosion, I found myself on the ground and lost my vision. We wanted to see the world, go to school, and understand life. We wanted a future too, but all of this happened to us because we are women and not men. I am a waitress at an Indian restaurant. I take customers' orders and bring them their food. I am very happy in my job because I get to meet people. We go to school and we know that we will have a bright future. I want to be a nurse and help people. This was my dream when I was in Kocho. I am ready to testify in a court and say he is the one who raped me and ask the court to punish him.
Voice of America follows ISIS victims in Germany, taking you on their disturbing journey from terror to hope of finding their own place in the world.
So after its long journey and processing, this is what we use to make our famous chocolate-covered caramels.
What we're looking at today is our chocolate tree or cacao tree. The scientific name for this is Theobroma cacao, and Theobroma is Greek. Theos for God, and broma for fruit. So here we have a cacao pod which has been cut from our own tree. And inside we see this white pulp that's surrounding the actual cocoa beans. These are typically just piled up and fermented, and it's that fermentation process that drives the flavor into the beans themselves. Once they are at that stage, they can be dried and they can be processed in any number of ways, but I think the one way we'd like to hear about is chocolate.
I just have to turn you back on.
Chouquette specializes in chocolate-covered caramels. We started in 2010, and now we have about 200 stores that carry our chocolates. We have a great staff. No, I want you to put them in the freezer, and then in 1 minute, take them out of the freezer and bring them to the very end next to Jonathan. So I'm often inspired by memories, which I think a lot of chefs are, but also location. And so when we did some of our first designs, the first ones I did were Happy Birthday, and then we also did a set of DC monuments. And so we took the 5 monuments that I love best in DC and made chocolates with those designs on top. And that was one thing that stores really responded to, and so did people on my website. This one in, and then Daniel, will you grab the acetate?